New years bring new trends and things to prepare for when it comes to SLO County real estate. It's not LA, it's not the Bay, it's one of the few areas of California that saw population growth through the pandemic, and the market remains hot.
The average time on the market was 19 days. Our average price was 1.174 of the 23 homes that closed in December. Now, if you go back to December 22, rates were lower. The average price was only 907, and we had 20 sell, and the days on the market was 46.
What's in store for 24? Let's find out. Here's your host and videographer, James Bueno.
Another episode, San Luis Obispo County
Here we are.
Real Estate podcast with the one, the only, Mr. Hal Sweasey, on video.
I am not the one, and I'm not the only, just so you know.
Oh, you're the third.
Yeah.
Harold.
Yes. Two of us remain.
Two
of the three.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
Yeah.
Who else is here with us? JT.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm the third as well.
In the rain spoon. Are you really?
That's
I'm
right.
the third, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the only one
So,
remaining.
You're the only. You're
Yeah,
the only
yeah.
one remaining.
Okay.
And then is it the one and the only?
The
JP?
one and only, yeah. There was no mold. There was no preconceived notion.
Yeah.
I was created and the mold was broken.
The mold. Oh, I thought you meant like
I didn't
peat
come
moss
from
mold.
I didn't come from a previous mold.
I heard that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
I'm
did.
sorry.
You did. And
Mold
then-
like a fungus.
Yeah.
what are we doing today? We're doing market
with
update.
First of the year.
Yeah, as
Market
always,
update.
yeah.
Kind of like to look at a little more annual because every month we kind of compare things. So I would say overall, if you listen to these podcasts or see our videos, we've had the similar theme of low inventory. I would say the biggest thing we've seen year over year, this is probably the most surprising if we would have gone back a year, is the pricing. I mean, our average price is higher in almost every area than it was a year ago.
Well,
lower.
Surprising to who?
Well, if you pay attention to the news, anything at all, people
Yeah.
worried about recession. People were worried the beginning of last year and the end of last year, recession.
Yeah. I think when we talked about that a year ago on this podcast, I think we predicted that based on inventory that prices, it would be hard to believe prices would go down.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that I'm patting ourselves on the back here a little bit. We were right. Prices went up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the average price went up. Now, certain areas, we'll see, and we can talk about that. There's been changes for sure. And it's by location. But
Sure.
I mean, all the stat, you just did the national stat, right? Didn't
Yeah.
well,
No, I
tell
did
us-
some car stats, California Association of Realtors.
Yeah.
But I'm going to also say that every year I'm going to predict prices going up. 90% of the time I'm going to be right if history's any
That's right.
indication.
Okay. You're 10-0 this, what is it?
Oh,
10-0,
I'm 9 out of 10
Yeah.
every time. I got a 90% chance. So yeah, Carr told us that the number of sales went down 23% in 2023, and they're predicting that to turn around in 2024 to go up 22%. So I think what I'm saying is 2024 ought to be pretty similar to 2022 if they're right.
Which was a pretty robust year. Yeah.
And they're predicting prices to go up another 6%. So what's the average home price in the county? It's nearing $1 million.
In the
right?
900s. Yep.
Yeah.
Higher nines, yeah.
So we're talking about the average, and I know average is a funky word.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous. I got 1 foot in a bucket of ice and 1 foot in a bucket of hot coals. On average, I ought to feel pretty good.
I don't think you're feeling good at either one of those scenarios, but
But so that means we're looking at a $50,000 to $60,000 increase per unit in the county if the Carr prediction's accurate.
So CAR stands for the California Association of Realtors, for those that might not know. And it's a it's a big cross section, but that extends from San Diego all the way up to the Oregon border. And there are so many properties that are in that, I mean, that are rural, that don't really have direct correlation to what we have here on the Central Coast.
Yeah.
And I think that the CAR numbers, as broad as they are, we do. And I think Hal does a great job of specifically breaking down for us what's happening in San Luis Obispo County, which is even, I think, greater than we're seeing in the state of California as a whole.
Our average price went up over $50,000 or $60,000, and I think our average days on the market was less than a year ago.
Yeah, it went down.
Now people say, what is our inventory? It's about 15% lower than a year ago.
15%.
And it was a year ago, it was down from.
We thought it was the lowest we'd ever seen,
Yeah.
right? So it's an interesting phenomenon. So unless something changes in terms of interest rates, supply is not going to change much unless rates drop. If they do drop, that will loosen up some inventory. but it's going to be eaten up by the new buyers who can step into the market.
Sure. They're coming off the fence right now because rates are in the mid to low sixes.
So here's what I found interesting. So, for example, we track the number of homes for sale. So if I take the city of San Luis, at the end of the year in December 2023, we had about 35 homes for sale. Average price was $1.3 million for those homes. Average days on the market was 74. But the ones that are selling, the average time on the market was 19 days. Our average price was 1.174. 1,174,000 was the average price of the 23 homes that closed in December. Now, if you go back to December 22, okay, a year previous, rates were lower. The average price was only 907, and we had 20 sell, so less sold, and the days on the market was 46. If you're a homeowner and you're selling or whatever, you go, okay, average days on the market, that's pretty fast, but that's not the ones that aren't selling. Here's the nice thing for sellers. It's a pretty efficient market, meaning you know in the first couple of weeks, did we get it right, not get it right? You got to be very careful when it comes to that, and you got to read the tea leaves, so to speak, or pay attention to what the buying public is saying. So we've learned that. It's nice. You don't have to wait 2 or 3 months to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
You wait a couple of weeks.
That's a great point. It's accelerated by the market. Yeah. Whether you're right or wrong.
So I'm a seller.
Yep.
And I'm listening to your podcast, and I'm hearing you guys tell me that all these prices are going up, and yet my house isn't selling, and you're telling me I need to do a price reduction.
Right.
There's a disconnect there for me. Can you help me solve that one?
Well, it's a change in the market, and every house and every location varies. We do a lot of work in San Luis Bay Estates. And, we've got homes that are very desirable in a certain location that suddenly are not getting near the prices they were a year ago, and they're sitting on the market. Now, that'll probably change in the next 2 weeks because it changes so fast, we just don't know. But, it's hard to use historical data sometimes.
And that's
like what others homes sell for.
That's what an appraisal is. That's what, you're looking at comparative market analysis. You're looking at closed transactions.
Yeah.
So you're really throwing something into the future to try and guess.
You got to pay attention to what the activity is, John, if you're that home seller.
Yeah.
So what's that conversation look like with me as the home seller from your perspective, Hal? How would you coach and advise me?
I would say there's a couple of things. One, what are we competing against? So if there's 2 or 3 homes similar to ours, I'm talking to those other agents, see what their activity's been. Oftentimes it's pretty similar. You used to, as a real estate agent, go out and show houses. Remember those days? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I'm looking from 500 to 600. Well, we got 4 to 5 houses to go show you. Now it's, well, let's wait till one comes up for sale, and then I'll show that one to you. People think that if I'm the only home on the market, I can get whatever price I want. Not always the case. The buyers are pretty savvy. So, John, that conversation is going to be around what the buyers are saying, what else might be showing, and if we get very few showings, and it's been 2 to 3 weeks and a price range that's moving pretty well, then that might mean where you could be as much as 10% overpriced. The other thing people don't realize is buyers still feel, especially early on, that the seller doesn't have much latitude in the price. So somebody might look at a house that's priced at $850 and they would be willing to offer $800, but they just don't think it's worth it. So they wait and go look for something else.
They don't think it's worth making the offer at $800.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yes. So they go, $850. There's no way they're going to take $800.
Yeah.
And that can happen between a buyer and even agents sometimes. Well, do you think there's any chance?
So for that person that would like to offer $800 but doesn't think it's worth it, how much does it cost them to put in an offer for $800?
It's zero. It's time and energy, and not much on your behalf as a buyer, and some time and energy on an agent's side. And quite honestly, you can have conversations about that. Meaning, you hope your agent will go, boy, it's been a couple of weeks. Do you think there's any give in that price? So again, that initial price is so important.
And you don't want to be chasing the market down. That's where you kind of get yourself in a pickle where you feel like, oh, crike, we'll lower it a little bit today. And then, next week we'll lower it a little more. If you price it right the first time around, you're going to get a much better result.
Nationwide, the studies on home sales, over thousands of sales, between the first week and 3 weeks in, might average 100% in the first week or 3 or 4 days. And then 3 weeks down, they might be 4 or 5% lower. Hey, in this price range, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, it is.
So time usually doesn't help a seller. Sometimes you have to think of your property as a loaf of nice bread, not Wonder Bread. It's got a shelf life.
Sure, it's going to expire.
Yeah.
There's a pricing strategy that puts the property, and I've seen it done regularly, where it's a little bit under what the market will bear. You don't have to accept an offer.
Right.
Right. And then the property gets bid up because it creates that additional activity.
Yeah.
I would, as a home seller, I would do that as opposed to, well, let's just see if we can get this number.
Sure.
Lobbing that out there and then having it sit there.
It's scary though.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want to put it out there lower than you think. Mm-hmm. And then you find out the truth of the marketplace is that was all it's worth or maybe a little bit less. We call it kind of positioning in terms of price. Kind of like, people that sell products, you position it like at eye level.
Gotcha.
Versus on the bottom or the top shelf where you can't see it.
It makes sense.
So
I like that analogy.
Hal, is it true that the biggest three criteria in selling a house are location, condition, and price?
Yes.
And so if my house isn't selling, I can't change the location. I can change the condition or the price.
You can change the condition of the price.
Right. So in order to get that house sold, one of those two things has to change unless I get really lucky that some buyer comes along that hasn't been in the market.
Yes.
And how many of your sellers 2-3 weeks into it are willing to change the condition, meaning they're going to go in and do a kitchen remodel or paint the whole house? Or how many of them are going to want to?
Yeah, it's very limited.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're kind of process of elimination here.
Yep.
If the house isn't selling in the first few weeks, it's probably a pricing issue, isn't it?
Almost always.
Yeah. How do you coach me to lower the price?
For most buyers, I mean, obviously they want a certain type of house in a certain location, but when we're negotiating, it boils down to usually one thing, and that's price, which is, financially. Price is the driving factor, and finding that price is an interpretation process.
I think what sometimes really puts a fly in the ointment is when that unicorn shows up. That person that wasn't in the market, that comes down from the Bay Area or up from LA, that's got a pocket full of cash, and this is the exact property they want and everything that was on their list, and they just make an offer that's probably more than what the general market, our local market, would support. Sure. But they don't care because they want the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about one this past week where the seller had an offer for $150,000 over the asking price, and they were about to accept it, and boom, here comes somebody from the Bay Area that offered $250,000 above the asking price because that's exactly what they wanted, and there weren't many of them out there.
That's the unicorn.
Yeah, all the little memes thing on the videos, the heyday of the market 2 or 3 years ago, and they're talking about, just a buyer from California. Because if you come to California, anywhere else is usually cheap. Let's face it. Now, if they're coming to San Luis Obispo from most parts of the Bay Area, some cities in Los Angeles, certain areas, the coast, they come here and they go, oh, well, geez, in my town, that'd be $1 million more. I'm happy to pay an extra 100.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as close as Santa Barbara. Median price there is well over $2 million. I mean, we're still we're a fire sale compared to what's going on down
50 cents on the dollar living in San Luis versus Santa Barbara.
Without the traffic.
So we did this in our video. So we know that inventory is not likely to go up. We're not building houses. It takes time. People are not likely to sell as much when there's a big discrepancy in rate. Most people have their rate. We know there's going to be life events where people decide to sell.
Death, marriage,
and then
job change.
And then the people in this market, it hasn't changed much. If you have a lot of equity, you've been in your house a long time, and you're downsizing or buying less, you're not as rate sensitive. If you own a free and clear house or you owe $500,000-$600,000, you can buy down and have either a low amount or no amount. So we know that can happen. What we don't know for sure, what are interest rates going to do? But it's highly, and I'll love to hear you guys' feedback, highly unlikely that we're going to have the big jump in rates.
Well, the Fed has stated that, we can, and through not specifically said, hey, we're lowering rates 3 times, but their verbiage is such that they're indicating that the rates are going to be coming down. Even if they stay flat, you have to look at the economy as a whole. Because the long-term or 30-year mortgage rate isn't directly tied to what the Fed's doing, but there is a parallel.
Sure.
And so the Fed's lowering and raising rates to prevent inflation or to stimulate the economy, one of 2 reasons. So
sure.
The economy right now, inflationary rates are a little high. They're higher than they like to be, but they're really, really low compared to a year ago. So the probability of them raising rates to slow down inflation isn't probable. Them lowering the rate to stimulate the economy, more likely, because everything else seems to be plugging along. This is an election year. We've got an election year coming up, so that sometimes can create some opinion on what that does to a 30-year long-term interest rate, because more people into houses, the better the economy feels. Yeah.
Hey, I got an idea.
Yes.
Why don't we invite one of our local excellent lenders to join us on our next podcast?
Let's do that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
AT, you're the man. Smart.
Hey, I'm just thinking here.
Yeah, they're likely to be lower if you hear about it, but we'll dive into that next week. But in general, the market's been pretty darn steady. It's efficient, as we know, and you're going to have a low inventory market for a while.
Everybody wants to hear what's going on with interest rates.
That's for sure.
I mean, we will get a lot of people to tune in if we're talking with a local lender, I'm sure.
Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to share?
Having had another wonderful year in the community, 33 years here doing this, great team. Got James here, got Jay at the helm. We've got a phenomenal group of people that I love working with every day, and we really all enjoy serving the community, and the community has been great to us. So we're just honored to have another year and really enjoy what we're doing. So just want to say thank you to our listeners and the County of San Luis Obispo.
And there's a bunch of ways they can get a hold of you. Hal at teamsweasey.com, halsweasey.com, 781-3750, Google Hal.
Or they can mail a letter. 860 Walnut Street, San Luis Obispo.
Lick the stamp, put it on there.
Yeah, self-addressed.
Is that when you attach it to a pigeon?
Yes.
Is that,
Yeah.
That's, what do you call that, JT? That's back in your era.
Carrier pigeon.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Message in a bottle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Jeez.
On a rainy day.
My bad.
James, when you have kids, they're going to say, "Hey, Dad, what's a combustion engine?" Like that. You're going to feel the same pain.
Yeah, internal
James.
combustion. Yes, sir.
Be a little more respectful of your elders.
My apologies, JT. Well, if they only knew what you tell me
Spare
outside
the
of the
rod,
podcast.
spoil the child.
In all seriousness, no, though, YouTube and podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And
obviously. So we podcasts, Apple and YouTube and Spotify and everything. We're gonna
be on YouTube.
We're gonna add it all. We are
on YouTube. Wow.
This,
amazing.
I just want to apologize, everybody, if this is not what you thought we looked like. I'm sorry about that.
Can we put a disclaimer at the beginning now, if it's because it's got a video on it?
We can.
Okay,
Jeff and I are going to.
I think you guys are better looking than you sound, actually.
Wow.
That's a win.
I'm not quite sure how to take that.
I'm signing off. I'm out.
As somebody who sits and edits audio all day long, you guys are better looking than you sound.
This coming from the radio guy.
Okay.
On that note, thank you very much. I appreciate it, everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you for listening to the Hal Sweasey podcast. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast. Check for it in your feed for the latest information on the San Luis Obispo County market. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is available wherever you get your podcast and on halsweasey.com, where you can find current listings and other real estate tips. halsweasey.com, that's HALSWEASEY.com. I am James Bueno, Director of Marketing for the Hal Sweasey Group. If you're looking for anything real estate, give us a call, 805-781-3750.
Hal Sweasey is a licensed California real estate broker. DRE number 011111911. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is a production of AGM Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.